4, 3, 2, 1. Walk with me through the cellar door.
A storm is coming, Francis.
A portal to a more skeptical world.
Cellar Door Skeptics begins right now. Prepare for the revolution with your hosts, Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna. Welcome to another episode of Cellar Door fucking Skeptics. How do you all tonight? We are on episode 171, and after last week's science episode, we thought we'd bring back a little bit of politics to the mix. A little bit. We're breaking our one rule here. We had a rule: we weren't going to discuss the Democratic nominees at all, because in fairness, all over the board, it wasn't worth talking about. But we're getting a little bit
the debates or something.
Yeah, I wanted to wait till the debates. I wanted to wait till more things were coming out. But we've now got to the point where, you know, there's a couple of candidates that have sparked more than one individual's interest, and I thought it would be imperative if we had the conversation. And we have a friend named Boyce who runs another podcast similar to ours in the same great Michigan state.
Yeah.
Of ours. And he's agreed to this, and he actually proposed this, and he said, hey, you know what would be a really good conversation if we talk about Bernie Sanders versus Andrew Yang.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, you know what? That's actually a good conversation, right? Because Hannah, you're a good old Bernie bro. So we're going to have that aspect. I just want not a Trump. And we now have Boyce saying, hey, you know what? There might be an interesting discussion in Andrew Yang. And I thought, well, you know what? Why not have a conversation? Why not have a discussion on the episode about these two important candidates? Because, you know, remember, Hannah, it was what, a year, maybe? Yeah, it was probably about a year ago. We discussed the difference between Abdul Sadai and Sridhar. And we had that conversation, right, between these two individuals who were running for Michigan governor. And they both stood on progressive platform. But we actually got to break it down, talk about where their capitalistic or non-capitalistic interests were, and which one would be a better candidate. Now, in the end, both of them lost, but the conversation was a very interesting conversation. So I thought at the exact same time, why not here have this same type of conversation with a fellow podcaster who is just as insightful as we are. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Mr. Boyce. How are you tonight, sir?
He's not even going to try the last name. He's like, screw it.
Mr. Boyce.
Mr. Boyce.
I like that.
You're welcome to, I know it's Littlefield, right? You know, but I just feel weird saying Boyce Littlefield. I don't know why. It's just like
he doesn't like saying last names. Like our last episode, we had Abby Smith on, and it was just like Dr. Abby. Like, you just stay away from that's just a thing. That's just a thing that he has. So that's all. We acknowledge it. It's all good. So once again, Boyce, welcome back to the show.
No, I appreciate it. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah. So you kind of posed the topic. Let's talk about Andrew Yang versus Bernie Sanders. So I think to begin with, what's the discussion point, right? Why did you want to talk about these two individuals? I mean, Hannah is going to say, I know why you want to talk about Bernie, because he's like, everybody should vote for Bernie. I'm going to put 17 stickers on your car. I'm going to run a flag down your street. I'm going to skate and scream and yell. But why did you want to talk about Andrew Yang?
Well, for me, it's just Andrew Yang's the one person I've actually done my research on where I'm like, you know what, I pretty much can agree with 80-ish%, maybe 90% of what he's saying, because you'll never find a perfect candidate according to any person individually. But I like a lot of what Bernie says. He's brought a lot of good things to the forefront of the party. And same thing can be said for Yang now with his UBI platform. But him and Bernie have some disagreements on education and stuff like that. But they're both going about it the right way, is investing in people versus totally going all out like we are right now with the capitalist format.
Yeah, pretty much what we're looking at on the Bernie Yang situation is kind of be like, what flavor of UBI are you most interested in? I mean, in all reality, what we're looking at here, and I don't know, how do you feel on this? So, like, the Democratic National Convention is basically being inundated with voices. There's tons of different people who are really in this thing. I mean, it's a really diverse group of people. The centrists and everybody has representation. There's a lot of women that are involved in here. There's progressives that are pushing the edge. Guys like Andrew Yang, who are definitely pushing that West Coast, East Coast liberal perspective, where we're really getting into these, the millennials who want to break a bunch of norms. And then you got guys like Bernie, who have been stalwarts of the same kind of message for a long time. And Cory Booker, who just wants everybody to hug and, I don't know, lick each other's cheeks or whatever it is he wants to do. But, like, I mean, what do you think about that kind of diversity that we've got here? Because I think it's really cool. And people are complaining. I remember when the Republicans are like, "This is terrible. Everybody's losing their minds." I actually think it's like the Democrats aren't killing each other. It hasn't been ugly. I mean, the debates will change things a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be as ugly as the Republican stuff was. So I actually like it. I love to hear these different perspectives, because the last one was so muted. It was so blasé.
Yeah, it was typical.
Yeah, pick between three.
Right. Well, and to me, what I like is the idea is also something Andrew Yang supported was, he goes, even if I don't win the presidency or the nomination for the Democratic Party, I just want this idea to move forward.
Yep.
Even if it's not, he said, even if it's not him, just let's think about this, in a rational way of how do we invest in what he calls it trickle up economics. So I like that point of view. And of course, Bernie's been doing it longer than I've been alive. So any of us, we were all not even an afterthought yet. And he's been doing it. He was arrested before any of us were born.
Yeah, he was arrested in Chicago in 69, 67, 68, somewhere around there. So, like, I mean, that's, the Andrew Yang perspective and the UBI is something that is going to be pushing even the liberal perspectives. And people that don't know, universal basic income is essentially a salary every person gets in the country. If you're a citizen, boop, you get this chunk of money. I don't know if Andrew is proposing it below 18. I think he's talking about adults, adults over the age of $18,000 a month. No strings attached, $250 a week. Think about what you could do to that. That is before taxes, I believe. So you're going to get a little bit of slice of whatever total money that you have at the end of the year, I believe, is going to be cut out of that. So if you, like me, you're under the $77,000 a year mark and you file jointly with your wife, or your partner, depending on what ridiculous state you are, if you are able to or not, for everything. But I believe for me it's 12% is that's the maximum category that I'm in. So you have the progressive system where each bucket gets bigger and heavier taxation. You would only pay up to the 12% on that total income, but still, I mean, $250 minus whatever slice of the pie. Let's say it comes out to be $200 a week. $200 a week would change my life. It would change my life. I would buy a new car. I would be able to own a new car in my lifetime, because I literally have absolutely no intention to ever own a brand new vehicle. I don't think it's possible. Like, that is a huge change, and I really like that idea, and I've always been for it, and I've actually pushed in the Bernie community on that. Like, where did you hear about Andrew from? Like, is this something that he was there and you read up and you thought it was cool?
Well, the first time I saw him was strictly on a Facebook ad, honestly. And he posted his, what do you want to call it, his website on his ad. And so on his website, you don't have to donate to get all the information.
Yeah.
Which I don't like about the rest of them. You got to donate $1 and become registered so they can hit you up later. his information is 100% free and it's accessible and transparent. And so I really started diving into it. And, one side of my brain says $1,000 a month, why even work? And then the other side of your brain, a little more critical thinking.
Yeah.
Your visceral reaction is that doesn't make sense to just give money away. But then you got to really think about it logically and look at the numbers. Because to me, if you were like where I work at, I go into homes and do therapy with people, and you have 3, 4, sometimes 5 or 6 adults in a home living in poverty in an absolute shithole. Now, if you had all those people getting $1,000 a month, this family could pool their money and actually buy a home, or buy property to put a house in. You can make better investments. So to me, it's going to help with the housing market. For college loans, you can pay off. Like for me, it'd go 100% to my college loans that are paid off.
Mm-hmm.
Little things like that. And especially for kids going to college, you can go to college and have that little nest egg to take pressure off the parents and the family to give you living expenses. So that kind of got me interested, because I thought college is one avenue to breaking the poverty cycle. That's my cycles. I had to go to military to earn my money.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that's important too. About 2-3 weeks ago, I took my brother to college, right? And he's looking to get into this thing called music therapy program. And at first I kind of thought this is some woo-woo program, right? Like I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe you're going to actually do this. Yeah. What the hell is this program? And him and I were talking, and it's not. There's actual science behind the whole thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and he's looking to go into Eastern. So, we went down the night before, got a hotel in a very different motel. I mean, I walk in with a plastic Myers bag, and some guy goes, "Hey, you got whiskey in there? You want to share?" And I'm sitting here in my head going, crap, I do actually. I don't want to share with you because I'm hanging out with my 18-year-old brother, and I'm not going to drink with him. I don't want you to come party with me because it's going to be awkward. Like he comes from an ultra-Christian background, all that stuff, right? And so like I'm sitting here thinking, holy crap. But, so I was like, I got diet soda in there. You want some diet soda? And he's like, no. If you ain't got alcohol, man, you don't know how to party. And I'm like, I guess I don't know how to party, And I'm sitting here thinking I got like, I got weed in my backpack. I got, liquor in here. Like,
I ain't got alcohol, man. I got a spliff though. You want to party, bro?
Like, it's just like, but I don't want to party with you. No offense. Like, I'm sorry. But when I look back at that and I sit there and think, if people were given more opportunities, you're still going to have that base level. You're still going to have people that abuse the system, or you're still going to have people that aren't able to get rid of their addictions. You're going to have all these different things. It's just not everybody's going to change. But if you can start changing the majority of society, if you can start helping other people, you will create a movement, and you will create people that want to be more educated. And if you look at the statistics, right, for America, where do we rank education wise? Where do we rank
36, I believe it was last night. Yeah, for college graduate or college completion rates. Yeah, it's pretty bad.
But how in debt are people? That's even better. You look at how in debt people are for their degree. And here we are. We have a low rate of return on investment, essentially. People are not getting what they're putting into schools anymore. And that's something that if we had universal basic income, if we had some of these other programs, I think that it would help people. I mean, think about it. Yeah. You were saying, hey, $200 a week would change your life. You're right. I think that would change 70 to 80% of people that live in Michigan's life, to the point where
I know it would.
It would help.
I know it would. Just real quick, that they had the thing the other day is the Detroit Free Press came out and said that in an emergency, something like 70-80% of the people in this country, not just Michigan, in this country, couldn't come up with $400 for an emergency.
Right.
They couldn't. I mean, not even $400. Like I look at my savings account, and I am dejected and bummed at my savings account, because I used to have a Lake Michigan Credit Union account and I would keep it full, 15,000 full, because you get 3% guaranteed return. I would keep it full because you get $480 a year just to have your money in your checking account. I mean, that was no trouble for me, having a family and spending all this, doing all this stuff. I can't keep it anywhere near that anymore. But like $5,000 is like an emergency level that I aim for, and I want to keep so that I can cover, a car crash, a major issue, a deductible problem, a blown out furnace that dies because my furnace was put in 1988. Like, there are things that I know can happen, but this is not a reality that a lot of people can have. And I don't even make $60,000 a year. My household income isn't over 77, like I talked about earlier. Like, we are not in, a higher level. I am in a good financial space, but still, like, the fact that people make less than I do and can't come up with $400 a month, like, you are living on the edge of life. That's not a safe place to be. Like, one tiny thing, not even a big thing, a tiny thing as small as just a $500 deductible on a car accident could crush you. Like, that is not a safe place for society to be.
Right. And there's people that make more than you that still can't come up with $400 or $500. They live
my student loans I have cleared out mine. My wife hasn't gotten rid of hers, but I mean, I know people that have $100,000 in loans and they make $40,000 a year. Like, what?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. So that brings us back to the discussion between Bernie and Andrew, right?
Yeah.
It does. And
yep.
I'll be honest, I did a little research, and I think the first thing we need to do is analyze where some of them came from, right? What do they have to start with? What do they not have to start with? Where do they add? So,
their stories.
Yes. Because think about it. If you had somebody that came from poverty that rose to stardom or whatever, versus two people that came from an okay, decent upbringing and then just happened, to make money. You have to look at those different things. So does any of you know how either one of them grew up?
Well, Andrew Yang is actually a first-generation immigrant from, I think, Korea and
Taiwan.
Well, he'd be second generation because he would not be able to be running for president.
Yes.
Yeah, so he would be second generation. His parents immigrated, and then he would be a full-fledged citizen.
Yes, and so he just went to college, and he went to law school. He's a lawyer, but then he didn't like being a lawyer, and then he went to school for politics and economics. That's how he got started. Then his business side of him, he started a nonprofit organization. It's called Venture America. He invested money into other venture capitalist jobs for entrepreneurs. Pretty much, it's a mentorship program for entrepreneurs. That's kind of where he got his feet wet. And this whole political thing is new. He just decided he's got a good idea, and he ran the numbers. He's an economics guy, so that's.
It reminds me of one of the guys on like the Shark Tank or something.
Right, exactly.
He's like, I played the numbers, and this is the winning equation for me.
This makes the most sense, Yeah. Bernie, I don't know his whole background. I know he's been in politics forever.
Yeah, Bernie. He was born in 1941. This is just a quick. I looked him up. His father was Elias Ben Yehuda Sanders. He was born in Slapness, Galicia, in Austria-Hungary. Well, it's obviously part of Poland now, to a Jewish family in 1921. Elias immigrated to the United States, where he became a paint salesman, and his mother, Dorothy or Dora Sanders, was born in New York City. So, to Jewish immigrant parents. So she was first generation American. Bernie's father was an actual immigrant. So I guess like a 1.5 generation is the Sanders, but he's got that basically that melting pot Brooklyn thing going on. So that his origin. So that's we're talking a similar thing, basically just a little bit different generations. But these guys are guys that know what it's like to value the strength and importance of an immigrant family, and the American dream, and why it's important, and why people want to come here. Still, we haven't crushed it completely yet.
Yeah, we're definitely not crushing anything right now. We're kind of crumbling a little bit.
Yeah, End of Empire is basically what it feels like. So like basically what we've got here, we have the early experiences between a guy who was basically part of politics in the youth socialist movement back in the day when that was a big deal. And I mean, you can get in some serious trouble for talking about what he was talking about and for fighting for the people that he did. And Andrew's new to this story, but they both do have particularly I guess comparable backgrounds. So it's really nice to see that that kind of experience is still new and still unique, but it's actually still kind of prominent because well, first off, he's Asian, so like we've had a male minority, so a male Asian minority would not be, I guess, quite as offensive to the people who think women are like this problem in America, even though they're the majority of people here. So I don't know if that would make him a little bit more electable over the old white Bernie Sanders or not, because I don't know. There's so many little things that are going on here with their perspectives and kind of what they represent. But that's their two backgrounds. I also think some of the other people who are really important that are going to be. We'll probably talk more about them in the future. But like Elizabeth Warren is controlling the Democratic arguments and what everybody's talking about right now. And Andrew is he brought up the UBI thing, and nobody's talking about that. But they both are kind of like competing and commenting with what Elizabeth Warren has been throwing out with all of this breakup big tech, and Andrew being connected to venture capitalism and stuff. He's kind of in that world. He might be a scrappy guy who's started it up, but he's part of that world. This new tech mega empire stuff, and so it's an interesting thing. And I guess it's more their aesthetics of the character. Who do you think you get behind, and then learning more about their policy.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting here is, I mean, in fairness, we had Bernie's site before. Andrew Yang has gone out of his way. I mean, he has a ton of information on his policy standard, where he stands, different things like that. Some of them
really
are
transparent.
He's very transparent. Yes, that's a very good way to look at it. And when you look at the difference between the two, you go, okay, hey, here you go. You can now try and equate the difference between the two candidates together. And I think one of the worst things that we could do, and some of the best things that you could do, is look at them and just take random statement. Andrew Yang takes his website, and in fairness, he has a short, brief discussion, but not every one of these are very detailed, right? So somebody went through and he's been asked these questions or was given a survey, and there is some aspects to the different ones, but not every single one. So, for example, his LGBTQ plus rights that page is very slim. But when he wants to go into gun safety, he literally has a statement that says, this is exactly what I'll do as president. So on one side, you can kind of see certain policies he's very passionate about. On another side, he's trying to give you the illusion that he's, going to do all these different things.
Yeah, but maybe he's a little bit slim on the LGBT stuff. Maybe that's not as important to him.
For him, it's not,
could be. Yeah.
Well, I think it's pretty simple, though. He says it simply, just equal rights for everyone, no matter what.
Yeah, I know. It doesn't take that long.
But that's not very simple, man. No offense. That's if it were that simple, we would have that now. We don't have that. Yeah. It's not that simple. Period.
Yeah, they just don't want it. The people in charge don't want it. But it could be that simple. It's just, okay, everyone has the right to pursue happiness. Call me crazy.
Yeah.
I don't care who you love or don't love. Just, it is what it is. If you're in a union, that's a marriage or no marriage. Doesn't matter. I don't like marriage anymore, but personally, a partnership of if you're going to share your space, I guess you'd say.
That's kind of one of the problems that we run into with, I think it could be, a male thing, but I think that's one of the things that we run into as people that have not lived a life in the LGBTQ. I mean, Andrew might have dealt with some of it as being an Asian man, but I think that's one of the things that, like, in identity politics, which is a real thing that has to be attributed, like, it's really nice to have that overall warm, complete, whatever, just the one size fits all message. But that's one of the difficulties in the Democratic Party, is that essentially we have taken everything besides the white middle class, I guess, blue collar ag worker, which is essentially the base for the Republican Party at this point, besides really high dollar conservative donors. It's a very simplistic and very easily identifiable group. And so like you kind of have to go out of your way to overly identify and overly mention everybody. It's hard to hit everyone. It's like the LGBTQ plus, they add the new letters and everything there. So like there's a whole bunch of stuff that this could be something that he may not think is important. And like, to me, I love your idea that, it's just to everyone. That's fine. But I've never been in that. Like the closest I've had to that is the handicap. With my hearing loss, it's very difficult for me to do some things, but not to the same level as it would be with someone who has a wheelchair or something. And wheelchair accessibility is something that's still relatively new and not applicable everywhere. Just George Bush was the guy that brought that in, as far as senior George Bush. And like maybe Andrew could be like, okay, more specific and maybe flesh it out. We'll see if he works on that as he gets into it. Bernie Sanders has this same problem, is that he wants to, everyone should have this, everyone should have that. And what he ran into is that people were like, well, we get that, but this is coming from an elderly white man. We need more specificity. We need to know that you really are behind the LGBTQ. We need to know you really are behind the minority communities. That was one of his big problems in the 2016 campaign. Like that could be something, I guess, that with Chris's perspective, that he could have done more there. But I mean, he does have a really good, clear website. I mean, I got to give it to him, because I didn't know some of the stuff that he'd done when they give his background information about his political science. And I mean, that's a really nice thing to have if you're going to be running for office, because let's face it, he went to law school. He could potentially write his own bills. Mm-hmm. Donald Trump probably can't write more than 1,000 words in one time. Like, I mean, really, that kind of capability. That's one of the things. Obama was a lawyer. He may not have been the best lawyer. He may not have been the most left leaning. He may have been more centrist, but he was a lawyer. Like he has the abilities. So like that's a really cool thing that he has. Bernie obviously has been in the system as well for a long time. So like these are capabilities of candidates that are. It's just. I hate to use the the expertise argument, but it's nice to see some. It is.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the things that we should look at, right, and I think this is extremely important, as much as I'm going to criticize Yang, the way we criticized Bernie for a while. But at one point he has this thing called human-centered capitalism, right? And I think that's probably, in my opinion, one of the most important points of his whole thesis. And if it were me, instead of focusing on, the $1,000 a month, this is what he should be focused on. And I say this because of the fact that this is what drives all the other policies that he's presenting, right? And I'll be honest, I'm pretty sure Bernie has never said this. Human-centered capitalism, and you and I call it democratic socialism. You can call it
or just regulated capitalism.
Regulated capitalism. You can talk all these other things, right? There's a lot of things you can talk about. And the difference is he says, I'm a capitalist. And if you look at it, you and I had the conversation, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks ago about the Starbucks CEO, right? And how we boom, you're out. I don't care. You're done.
Yeah, well,
because
whatever.
Yep, exactly. Because you have horrible policies. This guy has made a lot of money. Like, in fairness, he's been very successful at what he's done. But now he's saying is, okay, great. Why don't we take everything back? Why don't we ignore true capitalistic values that people want to present and reinstitutionalize capitalism and corporatism to understand recent development, empathy, and how people live.
This is the automation portion that he's talking about.
A little bit, yes.
Yeah.
And in fairness, he does harp on this. This is not something undiscussed. But he says these three things. He says the central tenets of human capitalism are humans are more important than money. The unit of human capitalism economy is each person, not each dollar. And Marcus exists to serve our common goals and values. That right there, if we could take capitalism and bring it back to those three things, we wouldn't have the human suffering we have. We wouldn't be looking at a $700 billion investment in the Pentagon this year. We wouldn't need those things. We would be looking to invest in research. You know, the other week we talked with a scientist. That's what we'd be looking to talk about.
Yeah, we mentioned it with Abby that that Donald Trump mentioned that he's going to cure HIV in 10 years or something, and she was like, "Sweet, I can't wait for all the money that you're going to pay me comes in." You know what I mean? It's like, I get it, but no, Donald Trump isn't going to send you any money to do science. He's taking money away from education and science, and he's giving it to bomb makers. Like, that's kind of the word. So Andrew's got a pretty interesting perspective on that one.
Well, what I like too about Yang is he doesn't bring up religion. It's a non-factor. You look at that whole website, it's got nothing to do with religious freedoms or whatever. That's
those darn millennials.
You know, well, to me, that's what the Constitution's there for, is to regulate that kind of stuff. He focuses mostly just on the money and the market and the pursuit of happiness. So that's why I felt a connection. He is the only person I've ever donated money to his campaign yet, ever.
That first time, man, it's important. It's a big move. It is, because those first time donors, and let's say the new thing that they've started, like the Sanders campaign started, is the recurring donor. So you can set yourself up for monthly donorship, just like you would with the Patreon or whatever. I mean, it's genius. Sanders has always been a little bit out front on that kind of thing there, but I definitely agree. With the this is an area of comparison where I wanted to go to an area of contrarianship, where so Yang basically and Bernie both agree basically at the core principles of the economic model that we have in this country is essentially that it should increase the benefit of all the people. It should increase the quality of life. That's the whole point of having a social contract, is that everyone gets together and they put a little bit into the pot, right? That's the idea of government. We're all going to put a little bit of money into the pot, and that little money in the pot is going to pay to protect us. Right. And then it gets a little more complex. It's like, oh, well, that little bit of money in the pot is also going to pay for infrastructure that'll help increase our ability to trade. And then once you get to that point, it changes what history does and how everything works. Yeah. And now we're at this point where we have this infrastructure, and conservatives believe that the infrastructure is there and doesn't need to be looked at it again. And Republicans, they're misleading themselves in the fact that the economy and everything is really dependent on that infrastructure, and we need to reinvest in that kind of thing. But it's not the same old brick and mortar infrastructure we used to have. And so Andrew's idea of basically making the economy work for the little guy again is something that Bernie has also really, been a major benefactor of. I have not heard Bernie talk about things like UBI, but what he talks about is removing tuition from public universities and schools or whatever. So like, this is, the education aspect of, like, education is the natural equalizer that will bring everyone to the point of equality. Because if you give people access to education, besides giving women the access to birth control and basic human rights, if you give people access to education, you're essentially going to equalize to a certain degree the people who have a lot of money to the people who don't have a lot of money. And that's a major equalizer. And that's Bernie Sanders' big standard there. I don't know what Andrew's talked about as far as education, but I would assume that his UBI, universal basic income aspect, is probably bringing in some of that, like paying for your education and, reducing debt or something like that. That's my assumption on that one.
Well, I actually just watched a town hall meeting he had over in New Hampshire, I believe it was. And he did talk about this, because Bernie is saying, and I think it's several of the Democratic leaders right now are saying, free tuition is the major thing.
Yeah, right. Copy the Sanders 2016. That's like the starting point for running in 2020 right now.
Well, and what Yang says is that's where they do differ, is how to go about that. Because Yang says that going to college is not a surefire way of even getting employment low enough, making a better living. Because it's a 40%, I think he said 43% don't even get a job in their field. They went to so you got an unnecessary debt. And he's more focused on vocational training schools for pipe fitters, because what he takes in consideration is the automation of AI that's going to get rid of 2/3 of some of these jobs that are accounting and even the medical field. They're going to start diagnosing people with the AI, looking at billions of body scans compared to that we can't as humans remember. So saying, okay, let's not go so much into 100% in college, because that only takes care of the people that can go to college pretty much. Either it's a fiscal problem or a physical problem of getting there, or finding a program that you even like. And so he's saying more, let's re-educate people in pipe fitting and construction and the infrastructure stuff that you can't outsource is what he's really trying to avoid, the AI crash.
That's what I mentioned a few minutes ago in the automation section when Tanner was talking about the three basic things that he's supporting, is that what he talks about, and this is the one thing that I've seen him talk about, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has also mentioned this a couple times, is that we are living in this world the benefit of automation. Automation has made everything. It's actually fighting me. It's one of the reasons why I have such horrible hours with my small business, and the specifics that I do is that people they assume that they can just buy a machine for 50 grand, put some dope head in front of it who went to school for a couple years, and just be able to produce whatever and whenever. Well, it doesn't quite work like that, but for some areas it does. And so when you have that automation, so essentially what you're doing is you're reducing the amount of manpower and necessary workload to complete a project. You're increasing productivity. Therefore, there's a profit to be made. And where does that profit go? It's not redistributed back to the people who used to do that job. That profit is being consolidated in a very small location. And so the idea is that with the increase in the advent of automation, what it should do, profitability and trickle down economics wise, is it should make everybody else's time a little bit easier. Instead of working 40 hours, you should only have to work 33, maybe, like they do in Northern Scandinavia. And they said, well, this is, we can work a 6-hour day. We're just as profitable. We've increased our productivity, so we don't have to work as long. The benefits are coming down to the people. We don't have that in this country. We're working longer for less. And this is an idea where automation should be benefiting us, but the people who are taking all the profits from that productivity increase are at the very top. And so Andrew's got some ideas. UBI is a good way to do it, increasing taxes and stuff on the super rich, in reining in corporate taxes a la Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren is another really good way to do this. And it's like there's a lot of really cool ways to do it. I haven't really seen any major distinctive ways. In the debates, we might see this between Bernie and Andrew, because Andrew is pulling over the 1% mark.
Yes.
So he may actually be able to get into some of the
he's
campaign
officially
debates.
in the debates.
Yeah. He's in the debates. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's officially in now. Good. At least the first one.
So we'll see, if we really can see some distinctions between them. Because I would bet you that overall, everybody pretty much all agrees, like I said, between Sanders, Warren, and Yang. But nitpicking, when we see the debates and the answers to some of these questions, we might finally see some differences, because until they're off script, you really have a hard time picking it. Because I could write a really nice, finely worded thing for a website, but if you ask me a question, it's a lot harder to answer sometimes.
Well, that's what I like about Yang and Bernie. They both do town hall meetings every week.
They're very visible.
They're very well, that, and they're going to smaller, more intimate locations where you can actually look the person in the eye that's asking a question and talk directly to that person, and meet and greet kind of town hall things instead of a stadium, which some do. And it's just a rally. It's not really talking about anything specific. You get to say your little bullet points and you get to rah the crowd. But I like the Q&A type of thing individually.
What is it, Wagner? Is he with the guy, the musician, the Flight of the Valkyrie and everything? The old fascist regimes used to love so much. You get the.
talking
I think
great to me.
I think it was Wagner. It was that was the kind of stuff that they used to play at the old fascist rallies where everybody would stand and they would have their salutes, whatever. Like this crazy inspirational 50,000 people, and it's like, but that guy is not talking to the average person. He's not part of that conversation, because one of the things that you need, I saw something pretty cool, is one of the reasons why the Roman Empire fell is that the richest people in the Union decided they weren't going to pay taxes anymore, and the Caesars are no longer accessible to the average person. They used to come down and talk to the people in the quorum, the idea of the Aristotle and Plato Platonian debates. You didn't get the senators down there anymore. They were this separated class, and that was kind of the fall. And like that's when I said earlier the fall of empire. America feels like that lately. Like it doesn't feel like it's the average person. So like Andrew, he may not be the average person. He may be a very successful person. So like it'd be really cool to hear him talk a little bit more on on the national stage. So I'm really excited about it. I think it's gonna be pretty cool.
Yeah. And the 538 actually kind of analyzes his popularity, right? And
the growth.
And his growth. And they look at, is he popular? Is he well known? Well, no, he's neither, but yet he is rising. And it's the problem we have here, right, is this whole media shift of the media basically trying to dictate who should do what, who should be popular. There was that large discussion about the DNC collusion, right? And I don't want to really get into that, but the idea here,
for the Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Yeah. But I don't really want to get into that whole debate, but I think it's interesting to see we have an up and comer rising, and the difference is, I feel the gauge level for this should be different, because when we look at Bernie may not have been super well known, but he was pretty well established in politics well before he ran for president.
Yeah.
Now we also have Trump, who was the exact opposite. He was extremely well known and extremely popular, but he really was not a political figure per se. I mean, financially, yes. But outside of that, he was not this big political, Bernie has served for how many years, and here
2007 was his first year as a senator, but he was like mayor in some of those smaller positions. I think it was 1998 when Trump first floated the idea of running for president. He was like kind of like just talking out loud because they didn't have Twitter at that point, but
yes. So the point being, though, is that Andrew Yang is interesting, in my opinion, because here we are at a different level where we can say, okay, we have an up-and-comer that is similar to Trump in the aspect that he's not this political elite. And he's kind of coming in spewing similar things to Bernie. And I think what should be taken into account here is, does his ideas stand up farther, and is he more progressive even than Bernie is? And what was one of the big votes that we lost? There was Green Party and Libertarian votes you lost, but the Libertarian votes stood up the most. Does Andrew Yang fit enough into that Libertarian regime where they could go, you know what? I don't agree with universal basic income, but I agree with some of these other business style capitalist ideas he has. I don't know.
Yeah, could Andrew win the Green Party and the Libertarian Party? What do you think, Boyce?
I think he can if he approaches it at the right type of language. Because language, matters. So to me, when you look at UBI, first of all, it's not automatic. You got to opt into it. So if you're on welfare, you can 100% of your housing and your food and all that stuff taken care of. Let's say that your benefits equal out to being $1,400 a month in benefits. You can opt out of the UBI and keep what you have.
Oh yeah, keep your government assistance if it's larger than the UBI.
Right. And so he's like, not every single person is going to opt in. And there's even rich people that won't opt in just because of pure pride. You never know, which is very few of them.
Yeah, you know what? It might not be as much. I actually, my wife was having difficulty trying to get work and stuff like that, and like she just like we could have applied for the bridge card. I could have had a chance for it, and she was just like, no, I don't want to do it. And I was like, it's up to you. You can make that decision. Like, I think it's a middle class decision that some people do as well. Like a lot of Trump supporters would be like, the farmers, the big thing with the soybean farmers and stuff like that. They're like, I don't want your government money or whatever. Like Trump is like, I'll give you $12 billion or whatever. Like they don't want it. They want access to the markets. They want to sell their stuff. It's like there's a pride thing that happens not even at the high end. It can be even in the middle class.
Oh yeah. Well, that's the thing though, is so we have an approach to the Libertarian Party for me specifically is that libertarians want more liberty, more freedoms, less government. But to me, the idea of the welfare system and the social systems we have now, as far as benefits being distributed, is we're paying people to pay people to pay people to pay people to manage your money for you on welfare. And $1,000 a month puts the onus or the responsibilities back into the citizens' hands. It's like, here's $1,000 a month. You know what you need more than we do. So I like that approach from a libertarian point of view of less government meddling with your money. You don't have to fill out so many platforms and red tape. And if you've ever been in welfare like I have, you got to go there every 3 months and reestablish your poverty. Like you have to prove how poor you are every 3 months or something. And if you dare make too much, like my mom worked 4 more hours that pay period, it went over the mark, and she got, say, $250 left in benefits. So it's a penalized system, and this is just do what you want with this money.
The system rewards you for being poor.
Well, yeah.
Like when you get to a certain point, like it disincentivizes you from actually getting out.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, so there's some problems with the structure itself. It's like when you get close to it, you're not rewarded for getting close to it and working your way out. Yeah, there's actually there's actually a negative to it. So like, you know what, you're doing well.
Right.
We're gonna hurt you a little bit.
Yeah.
Like
what? Too close. Yeah, it's like a jab,
Yeah.
But to me, from a libertarian point of view, you have the idea of less government meddling in what you do with your money. Because like I said, welfare and all that stuff is so much red tape, and the government, we're paying so much administration costs.
Right. If you spend $1,000, you spend $500 on administrators.
Right, and that's the thing. So now we have these people who don't have to be managed by Big Brother. I like that idea. I think we should be weaning off the welfare system and more into UBI to get off of welfare permanently.
When you're trusting people.
Well, to me, if you work at McDonald's right now and you're making $1,000 a month, and you have a little welfare helping you out mostly for food stamps is what it comes down to, and a little bit of maybe Section 8 housing, depends on where you live at. Now, if you have $1,000 a month coming in from McDonald's, and then you got $1,000 a month coming from us, the taxpayers, now you got $2,000 a month. You can actually choose where to live. You don't have to live in Section 8 housing where you're in only a black neighborhood because of poverty, and the government doesn't decide where you live.
Yeah, they're not segregating you.
Yeah, absolutely. They segregate you with the class system, not necessarily color, but you know how it goes in these neighborhoods where people want to run away from it. But to me, the UBI is a way of an avenue in the future of getting away from the welfare system, hopefully. Incentivize people to work.
That's basically what I mentioned a second ago, is that you're trusting the people.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of the UBI is it's something that this would separate the libertarians from the conservatives. So like the Rand Pauls who are like, I'm a libertarian. No, you're not. You're conservative. You know how I know? You know how I know? Because if I gave everyone in America some money and I said, trust them, they'll do the right thing, that's the maximum amount of freedom, right? I guess the maximum amount of personal freedom. Yeah. Rand Paul would run from that like his head was on fire. Like they would. That is not. They're not true libertarians. It's conservative libertarians. So that's something like this here would separate the true libertarians from the conservatives. Mm-hmm. I really think that he could win some of them. I think he would, because like, get the heck off my back. Reduce all of the other bull and just give the people the money. And there, I didn't have enough time to find some links. There's been some studies, one in Sweden and a couple in Africa. I want to think Kenya, from just raw memory. I may be wrong. I'll see if I can search out the link, and we'll include it in the description. Essentially, there have been some experiments in universal basic income, and people have been saying, like, listen, if you give people cash money, they'll do the right thing. And people are like, no. They're going to spend it on tobacco and cigarettes, and they're going to, be wasteful. No, they found in most cases that people really did the right thing. And I genuinely do trust people to do the right thing when it comes to universal basic income. There is difficulties. Like, the question is, like, do you give cash money to people who are panhandling on the street? Because that's essentially the exact same question. Do you assume that if you give them $5, they'll do the right thing with it? We're increasing, your bet. Essentially, do you think if you gave that guy $100 a week, would he do the right thing with it? And there's a lot of questions when it comes to, mental health and how well people are taken care of in this country. If they need help, can they get it? And so there's a lot of layers to UBI being a good thing. And so these are questions that hopefully Andrew will have to answer, because we've seen studies that say that people do the right thing. There are some people who make mistakes. In our country, though, it's different, because in the US, like, if you imagine if you drop the drinking age to 18, what would happen? It'd be insane because of the prohibition that exists. And currently we have, essentially a system that's created to attack and demonize the poor people. It's like Bernie's been working his particular manner of fighting that for a long time. It may not be as progressive or as I guess speedy as what Andrew Yang is proposing. And so maybe Andrew's proposal will just bypass all of the, your assumptions and get right to the root and fix the problem. And maybe that'll be the great thing. We could test it. And that's one of the things I would love to just, maybe let's do a 4-year presidency of testing this. And at the end of that 4 years, the president will say, this was a failure, this is a success. I would love to see something like that. I don't know if we'll ever have that kind of experiment, because I don't think people trust science that much. But, like, I don't know if that could be applied on a full scale. So, like, the Sanders model, where we're talking about bringing things, inside the system kind of to some kind of equilibrium, I think as much at this point, after the 2016 election, when Bernie picked up as much support as he did, and he's a front runner now, I think, to me, at this point, before the debates and before everything, he's probably my safer bet, because as much as, it's like the Hillary thing is like, is he more electable than Andrew Yang? At this point, I think he is. And I think he is more able to beat a guy like Bernie Sanders on name recognition alone. So, like, that's kind of where I am right now. Mm-hmm. I would love to see a guy like Andrew be the front runner. And if he's not, Bernie's, he's the closest thing I have to my full on socialist.
Well, here's my thing too. Could you imagine Yang and Bernie together?
Yes.
Or even
Sanders, Yang. I mean, there's a whole.
Then you got the problem of the women are getting left out again.
Yes, I know. And Warren Yang, Warren Sanders, Sanders Yang. Yeah. Tulsi's has her issues and stuff, but I would love to see a woman on the ticket, and Biden's already got a jump start on that. He's talking about running with the woman who ran for I believe it was governor of Florida.
Oh, Georgia.
No, that was
Stacey Abrams.
Abrams. She was ran for Senate, Stacey. And then Gillum ran for governor or whatever. But either way, like, Biden, they're talking about, like, bringing her in. Like, that's a really big thing. And McCain tried doing that, had some issues with it. So, like, we'll see what happens in the near future. But, like, I mean, I don't know. I really do like what Yang has. I think he has a lot to offer. I think people should give him way more credit than people who are running right now. Last week we talked about with Abby Smith. We talked. She really likes Mayor Pete Buttigieg. Buttigieg. I still can't say his name right. Yeah, Buttigieg. And, like, I get it, but dude, your name. But, like, still, like, that guy is really he's first off he's the first homosexual, I believe, he's a mayor in Indiana, and, like, he's got Yeah, openly, and and he's running in this position, and he's really a great speaker. I listened to his NPR thing. We talked about it last week. He's awesome. He's really interesting. I'm loving to see him get out there and get in front and kind of push some of these like establishment senators, because the Democratic Party's been running just hard on the senator thing, and so like seeing guys like Buttigieg and Yang come out of there and just kind of like push against that establishment, because Sanders is part of the establishment, even though he likes to say he's not. It's really cool to see that kind of stuff come out there. So I'm super excited. I'm not going to pick right out of the gate. Obviously I lean one way or the other, but like I do definitely agree with you that Yang is someone we should be watching.
Well, and that's why I do my little YouTube channel. I do my little political reviews of each candidate's superficial once over kind of thing. And people really have responded to that a lot. They're, especially for the small guys like Buttigieg. I had a lot of people supporting that. Like, thank you for just mentioning him. Low enough doing a whole video just on him. Yeah.
I guess how deep have you gone into the individuals so far, Tanner? Are you just kind of just like hands off, just like get this heck out of my face until I see it on the debates?
No. I'm not that. I'm not like that. I have a genuine interest in looking at them. The lady from Hawaii completely dismissed. The guy from Starbucks dismissed. Both of them aren't going to fit in. Her history is her history is a problem for me. I'm really kind of sold on Warren if she can put out there the interest that everybody else gets.
Yeah, I would love to see Warren get up into the same level as what we're talking about with Sanders and Yang.
Exactly. And I'm really interested in what Stacey Abrams says. I really genuinely enjoy what she says. Until tonight, though, I never thought about Andrew Yang. And then, like I say, we decided to have that conversation. And that conversation is very interesting to me only because looking at different positions he has, he kind of feels like a little bit more liberal Bernie Sanders, but with being able to make concessions to both sides of the aisle. And I don't know. I don't think I would ever care to see those two on the ticket together, flat out. I don't think Yang really has much of a chance, in fairness, because some of his positions are so far out there that even Democrats are going, hold on a second.
Yeah, but I don't know if it's going to be a hard enough centrist swing or if it's going to be. Well, we don't know. They bet on centrist last time and they failed, but will they do it again?
Yeah, we don't know.
Is the DCCC Dory from Finding Nemo? Is it? Is it really?
I don't know. Yeah. I think you're right, and I think the idea here is who's the best. Who's the best candidate?
That darn Michigan legalization.
Get your shit together.
Who's the best candidate that we can come up with? And I don't know. I think it's, Hannah, you asked, hey, have you looked at the candidates? The answer is yes. I'm not putting my head in the dirt, right?
Yeah.
I'm just not going to stand on the forefront and say, this is who I want no matter what. I'm going to actually let's let the public.
Well,
vote.
It's early, man.
Yeah.
Holy crap!
I don't think it's that early because you know who's in office, right?
Well, I mean,
every day I have to get up and go, President Trump. I feel so depressed. It's not even funny. It's bizarro land. This is bizarro world to me.
It definitely hurts a little bit. I don't know. I get it. Like it is like I was listening to the NPR Politics podcast and they were talking about essentially the what it's been like as far as keeping track of everything. But it has been like it's an early starting season, mostly because for the Dems that it's been so many people. Like there is a really, really big number of people that are running in the Democratic Party. Like the last time it was like, I mean, it was a new process. It wasn't, President Obama was done. There was no chance for him. And 5. There were 5 guys in the first debate. That was it. and then four guys and Hillary. And that was it. That was the diversity we got. And the diversity that we had was really low. I mean, it really was. Like one of the guys was like a centrist general. It was terrible. Like this time there's a lot of life in this, but they're starting really early because they know you need to when you've got an incumbent president coming in. So like, I think it's interesting. So like, I guess, Boyce, what are you looking for the any of the candidates, not just Andrew, who's basically leading the pack for you right now? What are you looking for as far as performance for these people that are coming out? Like what is something that you want, need to continue calling them a good candidate for presidency?
Well, to me, a good candidate just identifies a problem and finds a solution. That's a good start. That's all I'm asking. And then you got to be able to communicate that well. Trump's proven that to be wrong, but nonetheless, that's how I'd like to see it. Is something that's easily understood and that can be easily applicable to people, how they can apply it to their own lives. I think it's how you get votes, is to make it personal to each person. And no matter who wins, I think it comes down to the debate is going to really separate this crowd, thin it out rather quickly, the first debate. Because I think people that are used to debating, Bernie, Andrew Yang, I don't think Biden really is going to do well in a debate, honestly.
Yeah,
but
his history
Warren,
is pretty angry.
Yeah, he's the barking dog, is what he was.
Yeah,
and Elizabeth Warren, I think she could get caught up a little bit, maybe, but she's used to being attacked, so
I
she's
know.
got thicker skin. I mean, the whole Pocahontas stuff. I mean, come on, that's so silly.
It's terrible. She did fall for the trap, and I do not know if she can overcome that. But yeah,
that's what I'm afraid of for her. That she does have a good policy agenda, but God, Trump and his dumbass lowbrow stuff. He
brings you down to that level. It's so frustrating.
Yeah.
So Tanner, I guess Tanner, same question for you. What do you want? What's the one thing that someone can do? They'll be like, okay, let's look a little more seriously.
Look for more seriously.
Yeah.
I don't know, because what I would say is more seriously, or what I latch onto, is going to be different than what's going to make the candidate successful in getting elected. Right?
Yeah, I know, but what like someone grabbing your attention? So like, what one of these candidates going to do is going to grab your attention in the next couple of debates.
Reduce the amount of money we spend on our war budget and take that money and spend it to help integration, finding these kids homes, back with their original parents, and stopping the war on the border. That would be it for me. If somebody came out and said, I can do this, even you can't give me universal health care, but you can do that. All right, I'll take that. That's a conciliation for me right there.
That's cool. I think pretty much what I'm looking for, more so than what I've been getting from Bernie, is I'm looking for Elizabeth Warren level specificity in plans. So the Sanders campaign in 2016 came out with some nice plans. His plan that he had for reducing college tuition to the point where it was free for public universities, and his healthcare stuff, it was good, but it needed more. It wasn't really that complicated as far as what he put out. Elizabeth Warren has literally led the party. She's led everybody in this as being as specific. Her plan for breaking up the mega tech companies, Facebook, Amazon, very specific in what they're allowed to do, what they're not allowed to do. Amazon, essentially, you're allowed to have your market. You're allowed to be this huge media conglomerate, mega conglomerate, commerce conglomerate, but you can't actually sell things specifically as yourself. You have to be a platform, or you can participate. You can't do both. Like that kind of specificity, I think, is really important. And Sanders has to step up his game on that. Yang as well. And some of the things that he's proposing when it comes to, basically how you pay for this stuff. What are you going to do? And I need to do a little bit more looking into what Yang is proposing, how he's going to fund some of these things, which is really cool. But I mean, in the end, for me, like, let's just pull all the names back. I want specificity. I want to know how you're going to do what you're going to do, and at least as best as you can clarify. So, like, I love the idea of you telling me that you're going to give me hope and change and make me feel good, but I don't care about those things. I care about basic numbers. And so like when it comes to it, like that's what we need. And like whatever candidate is going to give me the best of that and be the most electable, those two things I think are the most important. And so like in the debates, if someone can give me specifics and really browbeat me with them, then I'm probably going to wake up and be like, oh man, that was the best thing ever.
Well, cool. Yeah. I think we've knocked that one out of the park. I don't know.
Besides the fact that Donald Trump has been president for 793 days, I think that is that's our final number there.
I don't know. As I said last week, we sometimes just have to watch a little bit of TV to ignore the Trump.
Yeah, or YouTube, or just find yourself down a dirty YouTube rabbit hole. That's where I've been lately.
Well, and that's why I had a IGTV channel now. The stupid Trump tweets. Dude, it's
dude, those are funny.
It's my playground. It's just my pure playground because we talk about serious stuff on our podcast, and you don't really get to be goofy. And for me, I like doing my little stupid and Trump impersonations, little hands, all that fun stuff. And it really pisses a lot of people off. I love it. I get a lot of DM hate. People calling me. One guy was pretty creative. He was rhyming really well. Bald-headed, blubbering, bluddering, blah 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 blah.
Oh no! You should like all the B words. What did we had a friend of ours who did a relative podcast. Alliterations, I think it was what it was called. When you use the same first letter multiple times over. I can't remember what it was. He's just like the Podunk Polymath podcast. Chris Watson, I think was his name.
Yeah,
I can't remember. But he that was one of his things. He used to love doing those things. And when I did see those, it's like you're a baldy blubbering blibble blah blah blah, and I was just like, wow, is that B letter stuck on your keyboard, brah? Like,
well, I'm such a smart ass too, so I was like, that was well thought out. I think you broke out the dictionary. I'm proud of it,
Thesaurus dictionary,
yeah. But it's fun because at least we had that little thing to unite each other about the big bad wolf,
Oh, cool. Well, thank you so much, Hannah. Thank you so much, Boyce. Boyce. I'll put an R in there. Boyce. It's like Rolls Royce with the B. There you go, but cheaper. There you go, even better. A Rolls Royce, but cheaper. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It was a fun conversation about a couple of candidates that we can only be hopeful one of them will become President of the United States in 2020. Thank you all so much for joining Cellar Door Skeptics. Have an amazing night, and we'll be back next week with more awesomeness. Have a good night, everyone.
You've been listening to a presentation of Cellar Door Skeptics. Check us out on Spreaker. CellarDoorSkeptics.com.
Like what you're hearing? Check out more Cellar Door Skeptics every week right here on Spreaker and iTunes. Make sure you come back and check out new episodes with your hosts, Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna. And always, remember, prepare for the revolution.